Thank you for joining Direct Supply's webinar. Our topic for today is Restoring Health, a Lifestyle Prescription. My name is Megan Klein, and I will facilitate our meeting. Please note that the information contained within this presentation is intended to provide general information, but not advice about certain regulations and initiatives. This is not intended as legal or other advice, and each situation may vary depending on the particular facts and circumstances. You should not act upon this information without first consulting qualified legal counsel. Today's webinar will be presented by Cate Reade. Cate Reade, MSRD, is a registered dietitian, exercise physiologist, and healthy aging specialist on a mission to help people optimize health and mobility utilizing the power of lifestyle medicine. She has been teaching, writing, and prescribing healthy eating and exercise programs for over 25 years. Cate serves on the MedFit Network Educational Advisory Board. She is currently co-authoring MedFit's Geriatric Fitness and Nutrition Specialist program. As CEO of Resistance Dynamics and the inventor of the Move More Mobility Trainer, Cate is delighted to be helping older adults unlock joint function, strength, and balance in minutes to build fall resilience and live more. And now, please welcome Cate Reade.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Megan. It's great to be with you all. Thank you for making the time today to learn more about this really important topic, restoring health, a lifestyle prescription. So I think the silver lining of this year's past events has highlighted the tremendous importance our health has. And the intention of today's talk is to share lifestyle principles that you and your clients can put into action today for heightened health and more energy. And who doesn't need that? So a concept to understand is that the choices we make every day can move us towards disease or back to health. And it all starts with how we choose to manage our stress, our mindset, our sleep, our socializing, our food, and our movement. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. And can you guess why these people are smiling? They're smiling because they're practicing healthier habits to feel and live better. And notice I said practice, because it's all about progress. It's not about perfection. And when you're making progress and feeling better, that is certainly something to smile about. So I am super passionate about this topic because I lost my health to chronic Lyme and regained my vitality with the power of lifestyle medicine. So I'd like to just start by sharing our story quickly. So when I launched my product business in 2014, 3 of my family members were diagnosed with chronic Lyme. My son, my daughter on the left, myself, and then my husband and son on the right were diagnosed with co-infections. So we were sick all at the same time, which was really fun. And our daughter was the most severe. She was actually bedridden for a few months. For those of you not familiar with chronic Lyme, it's caused by a tick bite and an infection with the Borrelia burgdorferi bacteria. It happens to be a pretty nasty bacteria because it's corkscrew and shaped, so it can drill through anything. And that causes unusual physical and mental pain, and it shows up differently in different people. That's why it makes it very difficult to diagnose. Personally, my whole body hurt. I had pain in my feet, my joints, my back, my head. The pain would move and migrate. I was extremely fatigued, had brain fog, depression, anxiety, and I was an insomniac for a few years. So the treatment helped us, but it left us all not feeling so great. And that's when I started digging into the research and started really focusing on lifestyle. When we put lifestyle practices back into place, we regained our vitality, and we continue to practice an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. Because when you lose your health, you lose everything, and we don't ever want to go back there. And with chronic Lyme, it's with you forever. So you just have to keep it in remission. So I walk the walk, and I talk the talk and walk the walk. So, and one key thing I want to emphasize on this slide is the body does have an innate ability to heal. We just need to give it the right environment. And one of the key factors in anyone's healing journey is our belief system. So a little question here for you is, do you believe your body can heal itself? What is health? Let's get started with the definition. As a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just merely the absence of disease or disability. I really like this definition because it goes beyond the physical, and it shows how we think and how we socialize also contributes to our health. We're much more than just a physical being. Healthy aging has been defined as the process of developing and maintaining the functional ability that enables well-being in older age. And this is the decade of healthy aging. So this webinar feeds into that by showing individuals how they can improve their health with lifestyle. So let's get started. The state of health in our country, as we know, we're in an epidemic of chronic disease. And the chronic disease is what's making us sick, it's what's disabling us, and it is what's killing us. Not too many people are dying of old age anymore. You know, it's obesity, diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease. The rates are skyrocketing. And we know that as we age, we have an increased risk for chronic conditions. Currently, 60% of adults have one chronic condition. Over the age of 65, it's 80%, 8 out of 10 people. 2 or more chronic conditions, 40% of adults, with 68% of those over the age of 65. So we can see there's an upward trend. This indicates a lot of human suffering. And the good news is we can reverse it with lifestyle, because they are diseases of lifestyle that can be prevented, managed, or reversed. And we know this is true because of the study of epigenetics. Epi means above and genetics means genes. And what researchers have discovered is that we can turn up the volume on our health-promoting genes and turn down the volume on our disease-promoting genes that we inherited from mom and dad. It contributes 75% of our health. So we have control, which is fantastic news. There's a thread that links all these chronic conditions, and that is chronic inflammation. So what is inflammation? Acute inflammation is this ancient biological process that's protecting us. It's the way the immune system battles injuries and heals us from injuries and battles infections. So for example, if we cut our arm or it gets infected, inflammation is the immune system's way of sending immune cells to the area, battle off that bacteria or those pathogens, and then start the process of wound healing. When inflammation becomes chronic, that's when the trouble starts. So it's basically an abnormal response of the immune system. And a large contributor to inflammation is oxidative stress, which I'm sure you've all heard about, and free radicals. When there are more free radicals that accumulate in a cell than can be neutralized by the cell, that's when you have oxidative stress and damage. Because these free radicals don't have any social graces. They are looking to connect with another molecule. And in the process, they end up damaging cells, tissues, organs, blood vessels. And this leads to the dysfunction that leads to chronic illness. With inflammation, symptoms include aches and pains, fatigue, digestive issues like bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, headaches, brain fog. And we know that the more chronic conditions you have, the more inflammation your body has. If you're starting your healing journey and you're looking to get a baseline on what your inflammatory level is in your body, there's a test called the highly sensitive C-reactive protein test that can give you that information that you're looking for. Lifestyle is foundational to turn that around and improve our health no matter what condition we're dealing with. So today we're going to be talking about stress resilience, mindset, sleep quality, diet and blood sugar regulation, social well-being, movement, and joint mobility. And just be aware that each of these pillars could be its own webinar. So I tried to take share the why with you, why this is contributing to inflammation, and then action steps on how to decrease inflammation. So you are unique, we're all unique, and this information is designed to educate and empower you, just to be aware, to explore some of these topics a little deeper, become aware of our own behaviors. And as we go through the talk, I highly encourage you to find out what resonates with you and what steps you can take today and write it down. Start practicing and focus on your progress. Throw perfection out the window. This is not an all or nothing proposition. Just focus on the progress and continue to practice because it's a process. So truly, health is a matter of choice. It's not a mystery of chance. And every human being is the author of his or her own health or disease. This is empowerment. Let's start with stress. We have all been stretched a little bit with lots of stress this year. And I found it really interesting that this article in the New York Times from April 2019 showed that we're some of the most stressed people in the world, with the highest levels of worry, anxiety, and anger. So we know stress is a huge issue across the nation, no doubt about it. It gets a lot of work. We talk about it a lot as being, oh gosh, stress is such a killer, but we don't really give it the attention that it deserves. And let's dig in a little bit to find out why we really need to focus on our level of stress. So the nervous system, it controls all function. If we didn't have a nervous system, we would all be little blobs of jello on the floor, unable to move, think, or respond to our environment. So our autonomic nervous system, as the name implies, are the functions that are on autopilot. So things like our heart beating, our energy being produced, our blood pressure, those are all on auto drive. And our nervous system's job is to sense when we're under threat or when it's safe. And it'll follow with different hormones and different systems that will respond to that. So there are basically two parts of this autonomic nervous system: the sympathetic nervous system, or the stress response that we're all very familiar with. It's when we have a tiger sitting in our room. And if we have a tiger sitting in our room, our cortisol levels are going to go up to make us more alert. Our blood sugar is going to increase, so we have energy to fight off the tiger or run the heck away. Our blood pressure, heart rate's going to go up, and our blood is going to go to our limbs so we can respond and react. Now, with stress, it's the same response, whether it's a physiological stress, whether there really is a tiger in the room, or if we just think and behave like there's a tiger in the room all the time. So psychological stress, like, oh my God, I always have so much to do, and I'm so worried about this virus, and if we have these worries constantly, this stress response is always on. And our bodies aren't built to be living in the stress response. It's just for that quick fight or flight or freeze reaction. And then when the danger has passed, our body is intended to be living more in this relaxation response, in the parasympathetic state. This is where our body is resting. We're able to digest our food completely so we can give our body energy that it needs to heal and repair itself, because every day our body is breaking down a little bit and remodeling and building back up. So if we are in this state, that this is where the healing happens. And one of the key nerves that activates this parasympathetic state is the vagus nerve. It's not the only one, but it's a big one. And vagus means wanderer. And you can see from the diagram that it wanders from the brain stem, all the way down into your throat, into your lungs, into your, activating the pancreas to release enzymes for digestion, to activate the liver, to the gallbladder to release bile for processing and metabolizing fat, to your small intestine, large intestine. Its effects are throughout the body. So we really want to be focused on how to activate this vagus nerve and increase its tone, because if we spend all of our time watching the media, which is filled with fear and worry, we will be living in the stress response constantly. And the danger here is that we know that these high cortisol levels, high blood sugar, high blood pressure, especially the cortisol and whatnot, this shrinks the brain. High blood sugar as well. And this particularly sensitive organ, part of the brain, is the hippocampus. Your brain is super sensitive anyway. It's a very sensitive organ. But the hippocampus will shrink. And the hippocampus is the center of learning and memory. And it's the first target of Alzheimer's. So this is of particular importance for us to protect our cognition, is to learn how to move out of the stress response. Research is also showing that it is contributing to sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle. So if we want to truly heal ourselves, we got to figure out how to get out of the stress response, get that tiger out of the room, and start living more with those puppies and kittens. And how do we do that? 3D, deep, deliberate breathing. So I invite you, let's take a little moment here to do a little deep, deliberate breathing. So I invite you to take your right hand, place it on your belly, take your left hand, place it on your heart, your chest area, and we'll just practice a little bit, because we all need a little bit more moving into that parasympathetic state. And this is a great way to do it. So take a big inhale into your belly, make a big balloon belly, fill up into the rib cage, expand the ribs, and then up into your chest. And exhale from your chest, rib cage, down into your belly. So you're filling up your cylinder, your torso, from front and back to side. Inhale from the belly, up into your rib cage, up into your chest, and exhale from your chest, rib cage, and squeeze that belly button. Let's do that one more time. Let's inhale, calm into our system. Up into the rib cage, expand it, up into your heart, and exhale, relieving any tension that you might have in your shoulders and chest and back area. So that was 3 deep breaths. And compared to just a few moments ago prior to the breath, how do you feel? You should notice a little more relaxation, because in general, you can decrease your cortisol levels by about 30 to 40% with about 3 to 4 deep breaths. So that's something we can do anytime, any place, anywhere. Mindfulness, being in the present moment. When we're living in the present moment, research shows we're happier. Meditation. If you're not one to sit, you can do moving meditations like yoga, tai chi, qigong. It incorporates breath, mind, body work. Fabulous. I do yoga every day. Find what works for you. To specifically activate that vagus nerve, you can gargle. So gargle rigorously, and so kick your head back and gargle really rigorously. And you should notice that your eyes are tearing. If your eyes aren't tearing when you're gargling really rigorously, it's an indication that your vagus nerve has lost some of its tone, and you might need some digestive enzymes. Just a side note there. Humming and singing activates those muscles in our throat too, so that helps tone up our vagus nerve. When you're super stressed and need a reset button, hop into an Epsom salt bath. That magnesium helps release all those tight, tense muscles, and it gives you time for yourself to just breathe deeply. Bring in some herbal tea that calms the nervous system too, like lemon balm or chamomile. Mindset. We've got to manage that, because remember, our body looks at psychological stress the same way it looks at physiological stress. So if we see the glass half full, bravo. If we see the glass half empty, we need to really focus on those negative thought patterns and focus on retraining our brain. How do we do that? Number one, we have to be aware of that self-talk, and we have to make sure that we love ourselves completely too, because I think there's a little bit of a deficit of self-love as a nation. So number one, be aware of those thoughts. And when those automatic negative thoughts come into our head, don't believe them. Question them. Is this true? Am I not good enough? Will I always be addicted to junk food? I'll never be healthy. Is that true? Reframe it, refocus, change your inner dialogue. One way to do that is with positive affirmations, because the brain tends to believe what it hears over and over and over. So I invite you to say this affirmation out loud with me. I love and accept myself wholly and unconditionally right now. What did you notice when you said that? I know the first time I said that, I cringed a little bit. I felt my body like, And I'm like, geez, what was that about? And I did not love myself wholly and unconditionally. So I started digging deeper. As a health and fitness professional, I always thought emotions were for the weak. I was brought up in a very stoic household. And what I've come to realize is emotions are probably the most powerful healer that there is. When you think about the placebo effect as well, when you can be given a sugar pill, but if you believe it's going to work 30 to 50% of the time it will, there's the power of belief. But if if you cringed a little bit or you don't love yourself wholly, I encourage you to explore adverse childhood experiences. And this was an amazing study done by the Centers of Disease Control and Kaiser Permanente in the 1990s, where they surveyed over 17,000 people, asking them 10 questions that related to physical and emotional neglect or abuse and sexual abuse as a child. And what they found was astonishing, that close to 70% of individuals surveyed had one or more ACE, adverse childhood experience. And the more ACEs that they had, the more likely they were to have chronic conditions and early mortality. So what it appears to be now, and what the study of psychoneuroimmunology is seeing, is when we're at a young age experiencing these traumas, our body gets locked into that stress response because we're hypervigilant. We're always looking for that threat, and because we want to survive. So it's a great thing as a child, but as an adult, it took me 40 years to figure out that I was living in this stress response. And it's such a relief to work through it. And sometimes you have to work with a counselor, a therapist. Best thing I've ever done for my health. My health catapulted tremendously after addressing these emotional issues. So how do you retrain your brain and grow this positive mindset? We know we can do some deep breathing, refocus, reframe our thoughts. Another little tip is journal your wins. And that just means as you're on your health journey, write down your accomplishments. And today you can get started right away by saying, hey, I attended this lecture. Write it down. You're on your way to better health. That tells the brain, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling healthy, and the brain and body will respond. We all know about gratitude, so we want to build an attitude of gratitude because that truly does change our brain chemistry. So think about what you're grateful for. Even in the midst of chronic Lyme, when we were all sick, I was just so grateful I had family and friends and financial resources to get through it. So there's always something positive, even in the midst of some really difficult times. Look for it. Sleep. We all know sleep is super important. Here's a little bit of more, information why. We have this circadian rhythm, and our entire body runs on this circadian rhythm, this 24-hour cycle. When it's light, we're supposed to be awake, and certain metabolic processes are happening, and when it's dark, we should be sleeping. When we wake up in the morning, our cortisol levels should be the highest, because cortisol is not a horrible thing. It's just horrible when it's elevated all the time. It makes us alert. It wakes us up in the morning, and melatonin is at its lowest. Throughout the day, these levels shift, where melatonin rises and cortisol goes down. Now, a big, the master clock in the brain is called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it kind of runs the show, and it's synchronized to the light. So the light that comes into our eyes tells the brain and the suprachiasmatic nucleus, hey, it's daytime, so everybody do your daytime activities and run metabolism. And all of our cells and tissues and organs have these little clocks. So it's pretty cool. So we can't fight our physiology. So we really need to be aligned with the rising and the setting of the sun. It's what protects our body and brain. It's the time that our body heals and repairs itself. The brain will actually shrink in size and to help detox the damage that was done during the day. Super important for health, brain health. A little bit about the sleep physiology. The cortisol has its own circadian rhythm too. As I mentioned, melatonin and cortisol have an inverse relationship, and it should be highest in the morning and lowest at night. But sometimes when we're constantly stressed, physically or psychologically, that cortisol will remain elevated, and that's going to cause us to have trouble falling asleep and staying asleep. It contributes to frailty and neurodegeneration. So we go back to stress and wanting to decrease our stress response and our cortisol levels. We've got to prioritize sleep. And this little cartoon kind of says it all. I stay up late every night and realize it's a bad idea every single morning. We've all been there. We've all stayed up a little too late, maybe working, watching TV, Facebooking, whatever it might be, but we never feel good the next day because our rhythm is off. So when it comes to sleep hygiene, I want you to please think of rhythm and routine. We want to practice sleeping 7 hours. We want to go to bed and rise at the same time. This is critically important. Morning sunshine. That's going to tell your master clock, hey, it's daytime, we'll get the cortisol going up, and then, we know what we're supposed to be doing. The whole body knows what it's supposed to be doing. Wind down about 1 to 2 hours before bed. So that's, get rid of the electronics, the TV, the face, the electronic screen, and get things dim and dark. I've got little salt lamps all around my house, little red light bulbs in the evening because I'm a very light sleeper. But amber glasses can help too. And try to eat 3 hours before bed, because if you eat too soon before you go to bed, your body's busy digesting and it's not able to get into that deep, reparative, restorative sleep. If you need some tracking devices, Aura Ring or HeartMath is something to take a look at as well. Let's talk food. So the life in food gives you life. So we have a society, unfortunately, where it's grab and go, it's fast food, it's processed food, because we're all too busy to cook, but that's turning around right now, I believe. But look at the colors of the food and how they just make you feel from just a color standpoint. Truly, the life in food gives you life, because what you truly are what you eat. Whatever you put into your system, that's the fuel and the energy that you're giving your body to function. And since you are what you eat, don't be fast, easy, cheap, or fake, because that kind of sums up the standard American diet, and we know where that has gotten us. Just going to take a sip of water. I know you've heard this before. Eat more plants. A couple of big reasons why. Plants are high in fiber. Fiber is going to help slow down the release of sugar into your system from the foods you eat. So it helps regulate and stabilize your blood sugar levels, which is super important, because having a blood sugar roller coaster ride is so damaging to your body and your brain. It creates excessive amounts of inflammation and free radicals. So eating more whole foods and plants is a great place for everyone to start improving their diet. It decreases inflammation. The different colors in the plants represent different antioxidants in the plants, in the foods themselves, and they'll squelch those free radicals. So that takes down your inflammation. It also helps boost immunity. So I'm not going to read through all these things, but, try to go organic because those pesticides, there are more pesticides found in conventional produce, and your immune system reacts to those, creating more inflammation. I want to emphasize fat. Don't be afraid to eat healthy fats, not the processed fried food fat, but adding avocado oil, olive oil to your veggies, it's a great way to add some extra healthy fat in there. Consuming wild fatty fish, grass-fed meat, butter, ghee, nuts, and seeds. Your brain is about 60% fat. Every cell in your body has a cell membrane that consists of fat. You want to have these healthy fats to keep a nice, fluid, flexible cell membrane so the nutrients can get in easily and the toxins can get out. Eat clean protein, wild fish, grass-fed meat, pastured eggs, legumes, nuts, and seeds. Spice it up. You've got a pharmacy, F-A-R-M, pharmacy in your spice cabinet. And these little guys are power-packed with antioxidants. We all know the benefits of turmeric are through the roof. If you add a little pepper with your turmeric, that boosts the absorption by about 2,000%. So that's really a great practice to have when you're eating meals. Cinnamon is our most beloved spice, and it helps our cells become more insulin sensitive to lower our blood sugar. So spice it up, guys. Depending upon where you are in your health journey, you definitely want to be eating less inflammatory foods. You can start by reducing them, avoiding them, and then eliminating them. So those are the processed foods. They're all high glycemic. They raise our blood sugar levels. They're low fiber, so the blood sugar spikes. Generally, it drops down a little bit lower than it should be, so then the body brings the blood sugar level back up with secreting cortisol. So this blood sugar roller coaster ride is very damaging to body and brain. Sugar, we all know, is inflammatory. It depresses the immune system, and refined carbohydrates as well. Gluten, we've all heard about gluten. Gluten-free is the rage. I do highly recommend getting gluten out of your diet. It's a highly inflammatory protein. It does a lot of damage to your gut and gut lining, and it wreaks havoc because once your gut lining is leaky, you've got a toxic river entering into your body in your bloodstream where it shouldn't be. So take note of that, please. Just to get an awareness of your blood sugar, if you are someone who before you eat feels hangry and irritable, a little spacey, a little lightheaded, maybe your computer screen gets a little blurry, and then you eat and then you feel better, your brain's coming back online, that's an indication of low blood sugar. And it's really dangerous because your brain is about 2% of your body weight. It uses about 30% of the blood sugar in your system, so it's very sensitive to your blood sugar levels. And when it's low, your brain can't function. You're doing some damage there. So be aware of that. When your blood sugar goes high after you eat, and you might experience brain fog, you feel slow, a little sleepy, like you want to take a nap after you're eating, that's an indication of high blood sugar levels. You could be experiencing a mixture of both. That's called the blood sugar roller coaster ride. We really want to focus on managing that. So some practices you can look at are, choose health by choosing healthy foods. You want to chill out when you're eating. You don't want to grab and go and eat in the car. We've all done that, been there, but your body's not digesting it. And you can't heal and repair without digesting your food fully. You're missing out. Chew your food. Digestion starts in the mouth. Eat regularly to stabilize your blood sugar levels. Ideally 3 meals at the same time each day. Cut back on carbs and the portion sizes. Focus on having fiber, fat, and protein at each meal. And ideally, you want to have 5 or more vegetables a day and moderate fruit, 1 to 2, because of the sugar content. Just make sure it's low glycemic. Water. We ignore water. And we're 60 to 75% water. And if we're not hydrated, it has a negative impact on our body and brain function. When older adults are dehydrated, they're cognitively impaired. More so, and we are too, we just don't notice it as much. But as we age, we do notice these things. It can help reduce your comorbidities because every cell in your body is going to function better. What are the guidelines? Now, European guidelines and the Institute of Medicine recommends 2 to 4 liters of water a day. And we also have heard this recommendation. No one really knows where it came from, but I think it's a pretty good one. I kind of adhere to this one. It's a ½ ounce per pound of body weight a day. So if you are a 180 pound, 150 pound person, that's about 75 ounces of water a day. A great way to get hydrated is first thing in the morning, drink a tall glass of water. I've worked up to, it's 16 ounces first thing in the morning. Then I go for my morning walk to synchronize that light input to my master clock, come back and I drink another 16 ounces. So just try to get that in the morning. It's a great time because we're all dehydrated in the morning. And drink as much as you can between meals. Social well-being. We know that the #1 predictor of health and longevity is through the strength of our social connections. We're social creatures. It's wired into our nervous system because this is how we've survived and thrived as a tribe. And we still need the same interaction with positive, supportive people. Because when we're around positive, loving people, we secrete oxytocin, which is that love hormone. And that's why we feel good when we connect with people we love or very positive people. We know loneliness has been a problem before COVID. It's even more of a problem right now. Feeling lonely is very damaging to health and it increases your mortality by 45%. And part of it, researchers have discovered it's more dangerous than being obese and as damaging as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So it's really important that we engage socially as much as we can. Unfortunately, we have to do a lot of it virtually right now, but it's better than nothing. So we want to nurture those relationships with a phone call, with letter writing, with FaceTime, sending care packages, whatever way we can connect. There's a website called Quarantine Buddy, and that connects people so they can connect online. And some people really rave about it, and it's out there if people are able to work a computer. I highlighted here 15 smartphone apps for older adults. So that's something to share with older adults for social networking and health and fitness apps. And there are some for visual and hearing impaired folks as well. My favorite, virtual exercise programs. So we all know that exercise is a blockbuster drug. It improves our mood. It improves our cognition. So it's good for body and brain. And it's a great way to socialize during these physical distancing times. So we all know exercise is good for us, but something I want to talk about that doesn't get talked about as often is movement. Because what are we doing those other 15 hours of the day when we're not engaging in structured exercise? So we want to focus on moving well and moving often throughout our day. One of the big reasons is movement becomes habit, habit becomes posture, and posture becomes performance. Now, what are we doing most of the time these days? Does this look familiar? So we're on our computer, head is pointing forward, shoulders are rounded, and if you watch people walk, a lot of the times they're walking this way too, okay? And this has occurred because of that constant repetition. Now, let's add something else into the mix. Does anyone have one of these? So put our phone into the mix. We have this forward head posture. And now, what are we doing with our phone? We're looking down, we're texting, and we're reading. So I invite you right now to get into this common posture. And I want to do a little activity here. So our shoulders are rounded, our head's forward, and now we're looking down at our cell phone. And I invite you to take a deep breath into your belly, rib cage, and exhale. Now I invite you to stand or sit as tall as you can. Shoulders are back and down, chin and chest are lifted. Take a big inhale into that belly, into the rib cage. And exhale. I hope you found that when you were in good posture, it was much easier to breathe. So when we're in that poor posture all the time, number one, it's stressing out muscles and putting them in a position that they weren't intended to be. So it's stressing and straining those neck and back muscles. Hence, we have neck and back pain. Now, it's also affecting the efficiency of oxygen exchange in our body. And oxygen is pretty important to produce energy. So it's contributing to fatigue as well. It's also contributing to cognitive decline, and your body's not able to function as well. So it's a body and brain decline with poor posture. It's creating more inflammation in the system. So practice good posture when you're standing, sitting, and moving throughout your day. Just be aware. And then we don't want to be sitting just sedentary, hour after hour. Research shows that 5 minutes, just 5 minutes of low, light physical activity will help bring your blood sugar back online, significant improvements there, and your blood lipids. And interesting point, the research that was done here, I've highlighted it on the slide, and that came out of Gunnison, Colorado at Western State University, where my son attends right now. So it's just really cool to attach the research to the recommendations and know that it's going to improve our cardiovascular and our metabolic health. So just get up and move 5 minutes every hour really makes a difference. Another thing with movement that we want to take a look at are our joints, because our joints are truly the gatekeepers of movement. And I invite you, we'll take a little trip right now. Just take a big inhale and close your eyes, relax for a minute. And just imagine you're walking on a beautiful white sandy beach without ankles. Or you're climbing stairs without knees. Or you are rising from your favorite easy chair without hips. Feel free to open your eyes. I know it was a silly example, but it does illustrate the importance of joints, and their function is for movement. So when our joints are mobile and able to move through a comfortable, pain-free range of motion, it affects the way we move, the quality of our balance, strength, and posture. And here's why. So when you think about it, our body is basically a stack of joints called the kinetic chain. Kinetic means movement, and our joints are the links on that chain. This is an integrated system. So all of our joints, from our ankles, knees, and hips, lumbar spine, thoracic, and cervical spine, they all work together. And with this integrated system, the joints, the muscles, the ligaments, the tendons, all the soft tissue, the fascia, the neural systems, all working together to produce movement. And if one of those joints isn't functioning well, it's going to affect the other joints as well, because it is an integrated system. One of the big jobs that joints perform is proprioception. And proprioception literally means sense of self. So in and around the joints are these sensory cells, or these proprioceptors, whose job is to sense what's going on in the environment, send that information to the brain. The brain processes that information, creates a map, and it will send information down to the muscles when to contract and relax to adjust and adapt to the environment. So that 3D map tells the brain where you are in time and space, if you're moving forward, if you're turning around, if you're changing directions. And once again, if we have limited joint range of motion, the brain's not getting all the information it needs. It's got a cloudy, foggy map. And just like when we're driving in the fog, we'll put the brakes on more often because we can't see where we're going. The brain does the same thing. So not as many muscles are going to be activated. When we increase that joint mobility, the map becomes clearer. The brain is going to activate more muscles. And as we move through that full range of motion, we've got more muscle activation, hence greater strength. The foundation of it all are ankles. So if our ankles aren't functioning well, it's going to throw everything else off above it. Because just like we want a strong foundation in our house to make sure the walls and windows and doors work for years and years to come, we want the same strong foundation in our house, at our ankles. And we know that ankle mobility and balance are mutually dependent. With aging and inactivity, we know that joint range of motion is reduced. And this contributes to dysfunction in our movement, in our strength, in our posture, in our balance. So as that joint flexibility decreases, our strength is decreasing. And what's happening around the joint with that lack of activity and with aging, those soft tissues, the ligaments and the tendons and whatnot are getting shorter and tighter. And that leads to compression of the joint. So now that joint's not working as well, but the body's going to make movement happen, so it compensates. And this compensation might mean that, another joint is in an awkward position. For example, let's take a look at the illustration here. One of the biggest, the first joint range of motion that decreases and declines, according to the American College of Sports Medicine, is dorsiflexion, which is part of ankle mobility. And this is a typical example of what happens when you lose dorsiflexion, the ability to raise your toes. And you'll start noticing people walking with their foot outward because of that loss of ankle mobility. And then what happens is the ankle rolls inward, and it's called pronation. And what happens up the chain, that pushes the knee inward, called a valgus knee. And then that affects the hip, where the hip shifts down because the knee is pointed inward. And then what happens to keep the head upright is the shoulder tilts up. So this leads to the dysfunction and inflammation within the body because, once again, those tissues and muscles aren't in the position they're meant to be in. And it causes degeneration. It causes pain. So that dysfunctional joint, generally you're going to have a pain above or below the dysfunctional joint. So that pain in your knee usually is not coming from your knee. More than likely it's coming from below with poor ankle mobility or maybe a problem with your hip mobility. Bottom line is it creates an environment where it's hard to move safely. So joint dysfunction is going to affect gait, the way we walk, how we perform our activities of daily living, and it's going to increase our fall risk. We want to turn it around. We want to build fall resilience. We want to build better gait and continue to live independently. To get the biggest bang for your buck, since ankles are the foundation, we want to focus on building ankle flexibility and strength. It's going to have a positive effect up the chain. I'm a research geek, so here's a little research just to support that ankles are the foundation of movement and balance, where ankle range of motion has been correlated with balance and functional ability in older adults. And this is really becoming a huge focal point with all the physical distancing. I know my mom's in Arizona, and she's been an exerciser all her life. She hasn't been able to exercise because there aren't any group gatherings right now. So real big, important issue for older adults. Ankle range of motion involved with controlling balance and posture more than any other joint, contributes to that gait speed, and pushing force. One of these studies concluded ankle control is indispensable to prevent a fall. So if we improve ankle flexibility, it's going to increase balance ability, and that's the foundation to better mobility and fall resilience. That's what we want. So how do we build better balance and movement? Number one, joints love circles. Reason being is it helps relieve pain. It helps improve joint health because as we're moving a joint, more nutrients and oxygen are coming in, hormones and immune cells are coming in, and it's going to help heal, with joint health. So let's indulge for a few minutes. I think we have a couple minutes. We can do a little joint circle exercise so I can show you what I mean by joints love circles. So I invite you to stand up and stand next to a stable object like a a sturdy chair or a desk in case you lose your balance. But we're just going to do a few joint circles. And we're going to start with our nose. So we're standing nice and tall. And just with your nose, we're going to make some circles. I invite you to move in a comfortable, pain-free range of motion. If anything hurts, don't do it. Keep it a smaller movement or slow it down. So let's get started with our nose. We'll do 3 circles in each direction. So with our nose, let's circle clockwise. And you can make it as big or as small as comfortable for you. Reverse directions. Beautiful. Let's go to our shoulders with shoulder rolls, where we bring our shoulders up, forward, back, and down. Up, forward, up, back, and down. Got that mixed up. And let's reverse directions. Back, up, forward, and down. Beautiful. Let's go to our elbows. We can make a T with our body, and we're kind of making circles with our hands on the ceiling for our elbows. Our elbows don't really get enough attention. And reverse direction. Just 3 in each direction. And now for our wrists, let's bring our hands together, interlace the fingers, and with our knuckles, let's make circles. Kind of fun, it kind of looks cool. Reverse direction. And then, I'm going to change my camera a little bit here. Let's go. We're going to, with the crown of our head, we're going to make circles on the ceiling. So we're going to just be moving our torso over our pelvis here. Change directions. Breathe comfortably throughout. Oh, I just felt my back crack. Feel good. And now with a sacrum, our tailbone, we're going to make circles on the ground. So it's going to be a little hula hoop action. So circle the sacrum on the ground, release that lower back, reverse direction. Pretend you have a little hula hoop here. And relax. This is where you want to, we're going to work on the hips. Lift one knee. If you need to put a couple fingers on a stable desk, please feel free to do so. And let's make circles with those knees. As small or as large as feels comfortable for you. Reverse direction. Now for the knees, make circles with your feet on the ground. I hope you can see that. All right, and reverse that. I'm going to move the camera one more time. Last thing, raise your toes and make circles with your toes. A lot easier when you're sitting. Let's get that other side. Lift the knee of the opposite side, circles with the knee. A little balance activity too. Not a bad thing to be practicing. Circles with your feet. Reverse direction. Circles with the toes for the ankles. Reverse direction. Beautiful. So that's a quick little body mobility exercise to just loosen up those joints and improve your joint health, increasing strength and flexibility. Now, another thing you can practice is when you're walking, try to point those toes forward. If you notice that your toes are pointing out to the side, don't fear, just practice moving your ankles in all different directions, lifting the toes, lifting the heels, and making circles. Practice that every day, and when you're walking, just really be aware of moving that toe more towards the center so your knee is rolling over your foot. That's going to help with your mobility. And do it slowly and gradually, and it will improve over time. Your body adapts over time to what it consistently sees. Another thing is to do joint and ankle mobility exercises, just some like what we did. And then I want to introduce to you just a tool that you can use to help improve your strength and flexibility of your joints faster. And it's the Move More Mobility Trainer, where you can build strength, flexibility, and balance in minutes with multiplanar activity for your ankles, knees, and hips. So with your ankles, you can do that dorsiflexion, and you've got 12 points of resistance around and between each foot. That's activating those proprioceptors faster than body weight alone, but you can do these exercises with just body weight or single exercise elastic band. Inversion and eversion, where you're bringing the toes inward and outward, also lifting the bottoms of the soles of the feet inward and then outward as well, working on those foot arches. You can roll the ankles inward and outward for pronation and supination, and then making the ankle circles. For the knees, flexion and extension, making circles with the feet for the ligaments and tendons around the knees. Hips, adduction and adduction, bringing the knees inward and outward, so working on that strength and flexibility of the hips. Internal and external rotation, flexion with marching and extension. Of course, you can't do that sitting. To extend your leg back, you need to be standing. And then there's circumduction, making circles with the knees. The great thing is we know this product works. We've done over 10 studies. We've seen functional mobility improvements, dynamic balance ability improvements with the reduced timed up and go, strength improvements with the chair stand as well, and improvements in activities of daily living. Now, to wrap it all up, I know I gave you a ton of information, but bottom line is changing habits is hard. And I don't want you to get overwhelmed, but the analogy here is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So that's truly the advice that I can give you to restore your health. And you can feel better. You just have to take it one step at a time and have a plan. So tell me, what resonated with you? Is it the breathing practice so you can stress less and heal more? To grow an attitude of gratitude? To journal your wins? Write down what you did today. Prioritize your sleep. Choose healthy foods. Chill out, chew them thoroughly. Nurture your relationships. Move well and move often. And focus on joint and ankle mobility. And lastly, and most importantly, be kind to yourself. Thank you for your attendance. And what questions do you have for me?
Awesome, Cate. Thank you so much for such an engaging presentation. So we did have a few questions come through. Let's start with this one, which is a pretty timely question for us. What are your thoughts on CBD oils and the potential that they offer?
I've used CBD to relieve pain, and you do want to look for quality products. So make sure you look at where the plants are sourced and how they're processed. So a CO2 extraction is, in my opinion, the healthiest and least processed way to go to preserve the benefits in the CBD oil itself. Two products that I've used and had good luck with, I have no affiliation. It's Elixinol and Quicksilver Scientific are two that worked really well for me. I think there's a lot of potential there. You just have to be aware there are a lot of people getting into the CBD business, and some with good intention and good practices, and some, not. Like any business, there are good and bad in each. So know the company, research their processes, research where they grow their plants, because you want to have as pure a product as possible.
Awesome. Thank you. So for the Move More exercises, do you have a suggestion as to the best way to document that, since many of the practicing folks in our audience today were asked not to document with specific brand names?
Sure, because you can, the important point with the joint mobility is you want to be moving those joints on a regular, consistent basis. So I highly recommend doing it just without any product at all. I do joint mobility exercises before I get out of bed. So before I get out of bed, I'm doing toe flexes and extensions and dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, ankle circles. I'm doing knee flexion and extension, just bringing my heels closer to my butt and then extending them out. With my heels together, open and close those knees. And then, I'm doing some stretching in the bed before I get out. And the reason for this is I want to calm my system down. I'm doing breath work before I get out of bed. I'm activating my nervous system, and I'm activating those joints. So then when my feet hit the ground, it's not like, what was that? So you want to, and then when you're sitting, at your desk working or watching TV, move those ankles, move those hips, get up, do some stretching on the floor. The whole point is to totally move your joints as best as you can. And if you need strengthening, you can add a generic elastic band. But I'm a little biased, but we've seen it work. And the point is here too is your body's going to adapt to the stimulus that you give it. So, any kind of movement that is a pain-free range of motion and is comfortable for you is going to improve your joint health, which is going to improve your strength, your balance, your movement, and your posture. And that's going to decrease your inflammation and improve your mood because you'll be in less pain and you're going to feel better. I hope that answered the question.
Awesome. And then the last one that we'll go through right now is, so in the senior living communities, we often rely on bread and pasta and other gluten-based products. Do you have some alternatives to look into or suggest to our dietary managers?
That is a great question because I know we are a carb-centric society. And unfortunately, the rates of dementia and Alzheimer's they're escalating and there's no slowdown in sight, but that is a great point. So, you can substitute gluten-free products. Unfortunately, they tend to be pretty high glycemic. They just replace the wheat with corn, which can be good or bad. But there are some pasta products that are made from beans and legumes. So you can check those out, lentils, black beans. So the black bean pasta, because the first step is to substitute something different that's similar, but doesn't have that gluten within the product. So it's a tough one. And, but I would start there, just substituting gluten-free products for those products that we know definitely irritate the system and are highly inflammatory.
Awesome. So we actually had just one more come through right now that I think could be really beneficial for everyone. You mentioned something called the highly sensitive C-reactive protein test. Where can someone get that? What are we asking for, or how can we have that?
That's a great question. So you would ask your healthcare provider, your physician, say, hey, I'm very concerned with inflammation in my body. I'm starting a healing journey. And I understand that the highly sensitive C-reactive protein test is a good baseline for me to understand how much inflammation is in my body. And then you can ask your physician to retest in, 3 months, 6 months, however long you want. And you can actually document and see that inflammation coming down in your body. And hopefully you'll be associating that with less pain, more energy and a brighter mood.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to stop our questions there. I do see that we have some more coming through those, so please feel free, all of our attendees, to continue to send them in. I will make sure that Cate and I connect and get some answers out to you. So again, thank you all for those great questions, and thank you so much, Cate, for sharing your expertise and your time today. And now, for anyone who is interested in learning about how direct supply can help you navigate these new technologies and products, please help me welcome our dedicated senior product consultant, Kelly Sullivan.
So today we're going to be talking about some equipment that is portable, that you can utilize with a resident that is more dependent, maybe sits for longer periods of time, and that actually provides resistance as it pertains to muscles that are needed for stability and flexion, and the ability to actually motivate that person to go from a seated to standing position eventually. So the first product I have here is the Move More, which Cate had alluded to throughout her presentation today. The Move More is a unique product in that it is a platform that uses multi-directional resistance. As you can see, as I move my feet around here and I can lift my feet, that is going to offer up to 30 different exercises for your staff to engage with the resident. Whether that be in their room, whether that be in a classroom setting, they can use this equipment with residents that may not make it down to the gym or the wellness gym for that matter. But what it's doing is it's allowing the flexibility to bring the product to the resident to encourage them to engage those muscles needed for balance. The product itself has various different resistance options here. So as you can see in these bags, there's different stretchy bands that connect to the foot platforms that allow for various different resistance. So if I have someone maybe starting off, they haven't worked out in 20 years, I might use the light option versus the heavy duty. So I kind of look at it almost like TheraBand. It's that spectrum of resistance that you're going to be offered here with this product. And at the very end, after talking through a few exercises, I'll show you how to disconnect and reconnect those resistance bands. The exercises, like I mentioned, there's up to 30, but there's 10 in particular that really do work on helping with balance and flexion and motion within those lower extremities that Cate kept talking through during her presentation. So we're going to focus today on a few of the Take 10 to Move More exercises that will be shared with you in the email that's going to follow the webinar. So let's talk about, first of all, ankle flexion. And ankle flexion we know is needed for proprioception and balance. And so a few of those exercises that Cate developed will help with that flexion. So for instance, if I engage my feet in a toe lift exercise, now I'm working dorsiflexion. Maybe I want to work on plantar flexion, so now I'm going to go engage that with a heel lift. Another exercise for range of motion would be the ankle O's. So I'm moving my feet around here in circles, or I'm going bidirectionally. Or in any of these activities, I can just concentrate on one foot. So if I just want to increase strength in one area, I can do that as well. So it can be customized to that individual's need. Another activity that we generally see in this space is a toe fan. So I'm moving my feet in and out, and I'm working on inversion and exversion. All right. Next, we're going to talk about a few exercises that really work towards increasing muscle strength in your quads and your hamstrings, opening up some flexion in those knees. So these are going to be some bigger movements that are going to really engage those larger muscle groups. So the first one I'm going to show you here today is the slide step. So I'm really going to push those legs in and out. So I'm sliding forward and back. And this is giving me really targeting that quad. I can feel that as I move my feet here. Another exercise I might look at is a double kick. So I'm going to kick my legs forward and I'm going to pull them back. Kick them both forward and then pull them back. Another activity that you could work with a resident on is the merry-go-round, and that's just a simple circle around. We're moving our feet in a complete circle around the board. Or I can go bidirectionally once again, targeting different muscle groups. All right, and I do want to touch on abduction and adduction as well. Those tough to get to inner and outer thighs that are needed for lateral stability. There are some exercises that work really nicely for this particular activity. So one being, it's called the in and out. I'm simply going to slide my feet in and out, moving my feet together, moving them out, moving them together, moving them out. All the way in a safe seated position. So I don't have to work out on a major piece of equipment in the gym. I can do this in the safety of their own room in a seated position. Another activity that I could engage those abductor muscles would be the cross step. And that's simply just a midline cross step where I'm crossing those feet over one another. I'm really feeling it in my inner thighs right now. So those are a few that you can work on for lateral stability. And last but not least, I'm going to talk to another more dynamic movement, which is a march. So I'm going to be lifting up my feet, and I'm going to be kicking that foot forward a bit, because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to really work on my hip flexion. So I can feel that in my hips, opening up that hip and working to increase strength around that hip. Again, also needed for lateral stability. All right, so those are the activities that we're going to show you today. Of course, there's plenty more where that came from, and we're happy to share those activities with you via PDF or phone call or however you'd like to engage with us. I'm going to spend the last minute on this particular product before I move on to the next product, just showing you the resistance bands and how easy it is to change them out. And as you can see, I'm wearing tennis shoes. Ideally, you don't want anyone in heels wearing this product. That makes a lot of sense, obviously, but tennis shoes or even like socks would work fine too, just as long as their feet are flat to that surface. So all I do is I turn these little green knobs here, and it says locked, unlocked. Pull off the foot plate, and here you can see the resistance tube, and it literally just locks right into place there. And it's as easy as that to change out those resistance bands. So I can use this board with multiple different patients. It's not that, okay, once those bands are in, they're in. You can use it from room to room with many different types of patients and with different needs and different ability. So that's the Move More. Very exciting product. And affordable and portable, which is kind of the theme of today. The second product we're going to talk to you is from a company we work with called Shuttle Systems. This is the Shuttle Mini Press. It's a product, again, that is very portable. It's on a roller system, so I can move it quickly and easily down the hallway to a resident room. I can stow it away in a closet. It's about 15 pounds, so it's not very heavy to even lift if I'm putting it into, let's say, a trunk or into some kind of storage space. The interesting thing about this product is that it's going to give you multiple different exercises. So I'm going to lift it up here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. You can see how it's engaging many different types of residents, whether they're in a supine position or they have a little bit more strength and they're able to stand and engage in some other activities. So for example, I have a resident that's recovering from a knee surgery or even a hip surgery. If I put a bolster underneath their lower back, I can engage those muscles in a supine position and actively have them put their foot here, secure it with the strap, and have them push against that resistance up the board. The more resistance they're going to feel is based on how far they can actually push that board up. We have a starting resistance with the red band here of 2 pounds. The rest of these have 5 pound increments and a starting point, but I'll show you the red. So the red, we're at a 2 pound starting resistance. As I engage that muscle and I push up that track, you can see along the side here, the pounds increase up to 10. So the further I stretch that leg, the more resistance I'm going to feel. I'm also going to be able to measure how far I extend that leg. So I have a progression, a measurable there. I can show that I've increased the ability to extend that leg, but also that I've increased resistance along the way as well. As that person gains strength, I can add another band, and now I'm adding an additional 5 pounds to that exercise. So now starting resistance is 7 pounds, and as we increase and push, we can get all the way up to almost 30 pounds of resistance. So what this all means is that the range of resistance is from 2 pounds to 80 pounds, so it's a very wide scale spread in terms of resistance. I can activate, those muscles needed for that you need to condition for recovery from a post-op situation. Maybe I'm working with the person on abduction or adduction. So what I would do is I would put this on the ground. The person would be standing, holding against the wall or a chair. They'd place their foot across their body here and push that leg forward. And now I'm engaging that inner thigh. Or maybe I'm putting my foot on the outside and I'm placing it here. Now I'm engaging that outer thigh. Or if I want to work on hip flexion, my glutes, I'm going to stand behind it. I'm going to put my foot behind and press and push back. Maybe I want to target some muscles in the upper extremities, particularly your pectoral and increasing pectoral strength for falls. Also good for arms from a recovery from a CVA. So all I do is put it on a table, and now we're pushing as much as that person's able to. So really great product. Once again, affordable, portable. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to email me. You'll see my email on the screen here in a minute. I'd be happy to jump on a call and talk to your staff about some other possibilities and how to use this equipment. Thank you for your time.
All right, everybody, that wraps up everything we have for you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Thank you for the great questions, and an extra big thank you to both Cate and Kelly for their time today. If you have any questions about the items discussed, you are welcome to email Kelly directly, shown on the screen there. Otherwise, you can email us, the webinar team, and that you can reach us at webinars@directsupply.com. That is the end of our webinar today. Thank you so much, Cate. Have a great day.